Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Let me just put it out there. What is going on with the AAA studios? What is going on, man? Everything's gone crazy. From being the best selling, best publishing studios to just losing it all on the flip of a coin. It is just absolutely crazy what is going on in the development for gaming and in the AAA studios world right now. It's absolutely crazy. We're gonna watch what Mug Thief has to say about Bethesda Softworks and see what's going to happen. It seems like the company is just toast. It's done. There's not much to say about it. They just did not understand the assignment. Not at all. If you guys don't know who Mug Thief is, he's quite good at this. His videos are really good, very well made. So you should go and hit him up, give him some love, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Let's see what he has to say, and we'll either agree or not with it. But it's most definitely going to be insightful, what is going on in the game development world and what is happening with almost any AAA studio lately. They all seem to have lost it completely. So let's see what he has to say about Bethesda.
The Starfield expansion saga continues because Emil Pagliarulo, the lead designer and the lead writer over on Starfield, has responded to the criticisms of the expansion and the criticisms of the interview.
I think this guy, the spokesperson for Bethesda, I think he's a bit off his rails. I think he doesn't understand that he's talking to people that do not take such things lightly. It's like he thinks he's still thinking he's speaking to critics, and he thinks he's saying what investors want to hear instead of doing what gamers have asked him to do. Let's keep going.
That I covered in my last video on this. Additionally, Bruce Nesmith, which was the lead designer on Skyrim and a systems designer on Starfield, has commented on the possibility of Bethesda switching to something like Unreal Engine for the Elder Scrolls 6. So there's quite a lot to talk about. But we're going to start off with Emil.
It's a really good engine. Why not do it from the beginning? They've been using the old systems and old engines and all that stuff that clearly they have not been capable of, upscaling to the level of the newest engines on the market. And this kind of feels reminiscent of Nokia. We're not going to do smartphones, we're not going to do this, and then the entire company collapses. You either keep up, you're in the game, you're in the new, or you're gone. That's how cutthroat this is.
I have found their response to be lacking, highly manipulative, and
I love it how he's like very gentle and very soft with them. Lacking, that's an understatement, because I have read some of those things and I found it to be disrespectful to the gaming community, to the people that have bought their titles over and over again. But Mug Thief is he's just a nice guy, he's not as savage or as brutal as I would be.
And honestly, just pointing towards trends in this industry that I keep pointing out over and over again that need to be eliminated, and we should talk about it. And hopefully this is the last time that I talk.
No, we talked about it. We don't need to talk about it anymore. They just need to do what they're told, or they're gonna be gone out of the market. That's the only way this is going to work. You either do as you are told, because nobody actually asks you to make this game. Nobody asked you to invest as much time into it. Nobody told you exactly what game to make and all of that stuff. We waited for you to decide. It was on your own decision, your own terms, your own time. You decided to make a garbage dog shit game and put it out there. Nobody else. And then you expect us to take it just because. No.
About Starfield, at least for a good long while. So I'm going to make sure that in this video, maybe it runs a bit longer than usual, but I want to get everything that I have to say about Bethesda Game Studios out there.
Yep,
so hi, I'm Mug. Right. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. It's great to see you. You might have noticed that I haven't cut my hair, which was going to happen at 50,000 subscribers. It's been a rough week. I've had some internet problems, so actually this was all recorded in the past. And probably current me
Yeah, the internet has been very awful lately, at least here in the UK. It just doesn't seem to work properly, man. It's like the clouds have more control. I mean, the actual weather.
Has his haircut, okay? All kidding aside, thank you for coming back. Thank you for your support. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoy the video.
Yep,
helps this
exactly.
video reach farther, helps the channel grow, and I appreciate it greatly. So Emil,
And
in
don't forget to
response to this
subscribe.
person on Twitter, Steven, starts by saying that he understands and appreciates where they're coming from. He talks about how Twitter/X has never been a place for polite discourse, but he still engages.
Well, how do you expect polite discourse from the people that you continuously and constantly disrespect? Not only through the garbage games you put out there at the high prices that you put them out at, but also these sorts of replies and discussions. That this is not the way you address the community of gamers. It is absolutely not.
With fans, and he talks probably more than he should because he thinks a bridge with the devs is important. And I agree 100%. I've said it many times that I think that
Yeah, that's true, but he is not the person to bridge that connection. When you disrespect the community, you'd be better off shutting up. You'd be better off.
connection, the communication that we have as customers, as gamers, with developers has been very broken in recent years, and that needs to be repaired.
Exactly.
And hey,
But
I
not
think
by
that
him.
this is admirable. It's a good thing to say,
by Emilio,
even if
whatever his
everything
name
that
is.
comes after I find not good. Now, he does acknowledge right off the bat that he's doing a lot of marketing speak in that interview that we covered, which, hey, is assumed, but it's what is implied in those feelings that really bothers me. And reading between the lines, he is very hyperbolic about things because he's very proud of the team that worked on Shattered Space, and they deserve nothing.
Well, not to mention it again, but pride doesn't really have space in this kind of a business. It just doesn't have room. There ain't enough room for it. If you go off on how proud you are about a team that just destroyed the game and probably the studio, I don't know what the fuck you're proud about. That's just it.
And look, I can understand that, but I don't think that's good when you're addressing your customers from a PR perspective to come off that way, which I think most people feel you came off like you were patting yourself on the back. He still defends us by saying that optimism and excitement are standard for interviews.
Bro, it's like they're politicians lately. It's like they're politicians. They're talking for hours, they're saying absolutely nothing, and at the end, they're shaking their own hands. Congratulations. Congratulations for being an idiot.
And that the intention there wasn't to come off as mud in the eyes of dissatisfied fans. And once again, he takes a step back.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but I really doubt that's what his intention was. No, he did exactly that, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't the only one that read that message before it went out, and if he was, people in charge of that company should not let him speak anymore.
Back and says, but he's also very proud of Shattered Space. Everybody is. You're addressing your customers from a PR perspective to come off that way, which I think most people feel you came off like you were patting yourself on the back. He still defends us by saying that optimism and excitement are standard for interviews, and that the intention there wasn't to come off as mud in the eyes of dissatisfied fans. And once again,
optimism and excitement are standard for interviews? What do you mean? That makes absolutely no sense. So if you've done a shit job, you've been called out on it, you're gonna go out to an interview with optimism and excitement? You think that matches the vibration of the people that have bought your product, that have put the faith in you in spending $50, $60, maybe even more, $100 on a game that's absolute garbage? I played Starfield for about 40 minutes and then I stopped and I asked myself, why am I playing this? It makes absolutely no sense. The game just didn't have any sort of feel or direction to it.
And he takes a step back and says, but he's also very proud of Shattered Space. Everybody is. Most of the quests and levels were done by designers that are very experienced and have worked on previous games and DLCs dating back to Morrowind. They're good at what.
Have they learned nothing from No Man's Sky? Which in the beginning was a failed game and then it was revamped and brought back to life by the actual hard work of developers that understood the community. and now the game's worth 50 plus pounds. I bought it when it was like 20 or something like that, and then it skyrocketed in price because they listened.
What they do, and it shows. I beg to differ. I beg to differ strongly as a person who has been playing Bethesda games since Morrowind. I beg to differ. And a lot of people bring up a really interesting conversation that I probably should explore more in depth sometime here on the channel of, are these games getting worse, or is it just by the very nature that you've played so many games now that you start to see how things repeat? And I just want to say that in this specific context, that argument doesn't count, because if I've been playing the game since Morrowind and they've been making them,
not just that it doesn't count, it doesn't hold up, bro. It's like you're making an argument in court, but you have no argument. You're just wasting the jury's and the judge's time. They're all just looking at you like, so where are you going with this?
Since Morrowind, we should be evolving at the same pace. They should still be capable of surprising me and doing new things, because they should have all of that experience and all of that knowledge there, and they should be aware.
Yes, but they've been way too conservative in the regards that they shouldn't have. They haven't advanced the technology enough, and I'm pretty sure that the people that help get projects like everything from the Elder Scrolls series, with the pinnacle being Skyrim in my opinion, everything from the Fallout series, everything from like other stuff they worked out, like Doom, like Quake, like I don't know, man, tons of games. The other one that I really like, but I haven't finished yet, what's its name, Dishonored, right? Maybe they haven't been developed by them, but they've been published by them, so they had a say in it, right? Where are those people? What has happened to them? Because it feels like all the morons have been promoted in the company beyond the limits of their competencies, and now they're all incompetent at their jobs. Because I keep finding myself in this situation, having to say the same thing again. It's like I'm not Don Quixote. I'm not fighting the windmills, man. Why is it so hard for them to understand? Bro, if you have good developers, you don't need to promote them. You just need to pay them right. That's it. Most of them are happy to stay where they are and do the good work they do and make the miracle games that they make, the amazing games that they make, without them having to be director of whatever. Just pay them right. That's all you need to do in order to keep those people making the good, great games. And when technology shifts from your garbage in-house engines that no longer hold up to the needs that you have, right, for development of these games, just move to the better engines. It's not that difficult. I mean, it's a brain dead move, bro. A zombie would make that decision.
That a lot of people playing these games have played since Morrowind. So if something feels like a retread, like they're just repeating concepts and ideas from previous DLCs and other things just executed on worse, but these are the same people that made those old ones. You see where I'm going with this? Plus, I get plenty surprised and happy by games all of the time. I love video games, and I don't think...
Especially by games lately from indie studios. If they can do it, and you have all the funding, all the technology, all the experience and knowledge, and you can't get it right, then it's lack of willingness. Because it can't be anything else other than lack of willingness. You don't want to. What are they doing? Are they completely ruining the stocks of the company in a different interest? Are they trying to buy their company back from the investors? Because that's gonna backfire. Because in the process of doing that, you're destroying your buyers, your actual gamer base. You know, the people don't want your products anymore. So when you go through all of that process, you're going to be nothing. You're gonna end up acquired by someone else that's probably gonna slap another name on it and just try and use it as it is. By getting some ownership over some titles, you know. It's just sad. It's sad.
My disappointment from Shattered Space comes from me just not liking this formula anymore. I think that if I'm disappointed with Shattered Space, it could very well be because there's a lot of other better games out right now, but it could also very well be what I think it is, that these quests, this scenario is just not up to a standard that this very company has had in the past, even when I separate myself as much as possible from nostalgia.
You can't. You see, too many companies have played the nostalgia card lately. They can't really make games to the level at which they are expected to do, with the experience, the funding, the people, the knowledge, all of that stuff. So they play the nostalgia card, but it doesn't work anymore. I mean, it's like a trap card now.
Here we reach a point that I'm really not happy with. If folks haven't played Shattered Space and they like Starfield, I think they're missing out. And I agree. If you really like Starfield, you're probably going to like Shattered Space, not for $30, but you're probably going to enjoy it. But that is very dependent on if you left Starfield feeling like you wanted more Starfield, not better Starfield.
Listen, if you failed with a game and you make an update for it, you shouldn't ask prices like that. You shouldn't ask for anything. That should be like an apology to the community of gamers that are still playing your game. That should be your apology. You should say, here's a free massive DLC for the game. We're sorry we messed up in the first place. We fixed the issues that we had, because that's what you should be doing first of all. Don't release any DLC, no updates until you fix the problems you have with the game. And then when you do release the first DLC, it should be free for everybody. For everybody that's still stuck around. Because otherwise they're all gonna be playing something else.
Just more Starfield. But he says, if folks played Shattered Space and still don't like it, that makes me sad, honestly. Just know that we've also been hearing from plenty of people who love it.
That's
just know that there's people who like it is a really strange, manipulative way of saying, bro, that's your opinion, and there's a lot of people who disagree with you, so don't think that your opinion is right. It's just...
But those opinions either make it or break it for your game. Either sell it or don't. And in an age where everybody can easily get informed about a game before they even look at the trailer of the game, by just YouTubing it or Googling it, or even hitting, I don't know, post boards, whatever they're called, right? Reddit and stuff. You can get the information about the game before the trailer even airs, right? You can't do that. It doesn't make any sense. You understand? You're destroying your buyer's base. You're just literally obliterating it.
Just an opinion, and I strongly disagree with this sentiment. My opinion is right for me. There's a large group of people who think Shattered Space is overall disappointing and a very bad omen for the future of the company by the nature of it being a return to a classic structure that you couldn't even do right. This idea of, but there's people who love it as a defense.
That's exactly what I was saying before. You can't even do right the things that you used to get right. What has happened? Literally, what has happened? Did you fire all the good developers that were making that happen? And then you promoted the people that you shouldn't have promoted to positions from where their only goal is to destroy your company? It feels
makes
like
it sound like that majority of people that are voicing their concerns shouldn't be regarded as a priority, that shouldn't be where they place their focus on, that their instead we must be doing something right, because
he's like getting not mixed, like getting a maximum of like bad game reviews. You got 10,000 bad game reviews and you have 300 great game reviews, and you're only basing it on the voice of the 300. Mate, you're not Spartans. Then 300 ain't gonna equate for the 10,000 people telling you you've done it wrong. Would you rather sell only 300 copies or 10,000 copies to the people that expected the title to be right, to be good, to at least be decent?
There exists people on the planet that like what we did. And it's this head in the sand mentality that I've been talking about so much in recent videos. It's like, guys, I don't want to address your criticisms. I don't think that the team should focus on all of the negative stuff that you guys are putting out there regarding this expansion, because there's people who like it. But that's exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to acknowledge those criticisms, and you're supposed to directly work towards resolving them, not to transform them into whatever you think are the most important criticisms. You shouldn't ignore them and say that there are people who like them, because there's people who like literal garbage. There's people out there going out to bat for things for any number of reasons. It's
because our reply to all of that is good. From now on, sell to those people. And your entire gaming studio is flush. That's it. That's it. Go and sell to those people. That's the only reply we as gamers should give them. Okay, you got people that like the game? Sell to them. But let's see if you can survive.
It's just a very twisted way of trying to manipulate the conversation towards actually what we're doing is fine. It's just that your tastes are weird, and it's just an extension.
And again, you're discussing a customer's taste. Since when?
Of in the interview when he said it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
That's really
that very
bad for
interview that he started off this thread by saying sometimes I'm just overly optimistic because it's for the press. Well, you're just doing the same thing with different words here, Emil. Stop treating us like we're dumb. And again, next tweet shifts the blame towards the fans. Maybe it's a game of expectations. Fans want a lot, and we do all we can to accommodate them. Here's what I can tell you: no.
Are you Schmiernias? What are you talking about? You're doing the best that you can. Bro, you're ignoring people's requests. You're ignoring the criticism that comes from the majority of the buyers. What are you talking about? I don't know what he's on, but we gotta find out. That shit's good.
And I mean, nobody at Bethesda is patting themselves on the back while ignoring our players. Well, the issue is that, one, you shouldn't say that fans want a lot, so because our expectations are high, we're disappointed. So what happens with fans like me?
How much
what
money
happens
are you
with people like me?
How? No. Just wait on. Hold on for 1 second, Mug. How much money are you asking for this game? How much money did it actually cost, right? For the consumers. You think they're asking too much for how much they're actually paying? Bro, there's like 15-pound games, 20-pound games that can do it better than you. That can do it 1,000,000 times better than you, and they come from indie studios with 3 to 5 developers. What are you talking about doing your best? Doing your best on what? On avoiding responsibility? On acknowledging? On apologizing? What is he on about? He must have not had his cup of tea.
That just thought that Shattered Space was a good testing ground to see if you guys could still make a more contained story in one of your little explorable areas like you've done in so many DLCs before. My expectations were just, please make this as good as the average Fallout 4, Fallout 3, or Skyrim DLC, and you fell completely flat even against those very basic standards. How is that having high expectations? Why are you trying to shift the blame towards, hey, people just expected to?
Because they are narcissistic and incapable of self-reflection. That's why you should never, ever put a narcissistic person in a position of leadership. They will always shift the blame. They will always be incapable of self-reflection. I don't understand how people like this guy end up in those positions. Yeah, I really don't understand. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like a brain-dead move for the company to promote such a person at that position, or to employ someone like that. It makes absolutely no sense. Can we all please move away from the narcissistic people that are incapable of self-reflection in all industries? In all of them, not just this one, in all of them. It just doesn't make any sense.
Too much, man. Like, they expect something worth $30. What can we do? But then it's even followed up with, we're not ignoring our players, even though all we're doing here is focusing on the positive feedback that we've received on the game and trying to minimize the negative things that our players have said. How is this communicating that when you're actively proving the opposite? And we reach the part that really pisses me off. Starfield is a massive game, and it takes time for us to address things. We move as fast as we can, as safely as we can. Game development is always tricky, but with a game as big as Starfield, every fix could potentially break something else. Guys, you don't get it. Making games is really hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You should listen, guys. It's so hard for us to make games. Do it. And you know what? They're basically miracles.
No, they aren't. No, they aren't. If studios of 5 people can make a better job than this, they aren't. With the level of technology, with procedural generation, with AIs, with all of that stuff, you're telling me it's still difficult for you to do that? Maybe, in the past, all of this was based on a spark of genius, but nowadays the spark of genius is like at your fingertips. It makes absolutely no sense what he's saying. And I don't agree with Mug on this. I don't agree with him that it's difficult to make video games. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Just look at the multitude of titles that are extraordinary titles that have been coming out lately. I don't think it is. I honestly do not think it is. Oh, to get out of the box and do something totally extraordinary that the gamers will consider art, like, I don't know, for example, Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe that's a little difficult to get to that point, but all you gotta do is listen. So if you're not listening, it's only your fault. If you're not self-reflecting and improving from the point of error, then you are the problem. Right? It's not that making games is difficult, it's that you understanding the assignment is difficult. It's difficult for you. And that means you're the problem. If that's your statement and that's what you support, you are the problem. For that company, that game, that title, that development cycle, you are the problem. And that's the way it is. She just cannot deny it anymore. You are the problem. And we'll see that reflected in the next board meeting, probably, when this guy's gonna have to find himself another job, because that's probably the only direction this is heading into for him. I mean, you can't say this for too long without any repercussions. I mean, there are bound to be at least 2 intelligent people on that board that will understand this differently than what comes out of your mouth. It's just bound. You can't. They can't all be idiots. You understand? At least 1 or 2 of them gotta be intelligent, right? I mean, after all, it's their money that's in the game.
I regard pretty much every video game that exists as a miracle. Like, how did you guys put all of this together? Especially if you're a fan of Bethesda games, you see how clearly they are miracles, because we can, like, actually observe the tape that is holding them together.
It's mostly good story, good gameplay. That's it. You have these 2 things. That's all that players usually look for. Good story, good gameplay. And it's actually the gameplay that comes first. If the gameplay is good, it's fun, which is the most important thing in any single game. Make it fun. You deviate from that, you kill the game.
Together for like the
it's
last
not even 3 points,
years.
it's just 2 points.
But
Good
this
story,
isn't supposed to
fun.
be a pity party. You're offering a product for sale.
Exactly.
You're selling people a video game. They're going to give you money, and they expect a certain value, a certain experience for that time and for that money in exchange. And it's completely fair for people to criticize what they're getting, to compare it to other video games that exist.
Of course. There are lots of analogies here. You buy a car and all you get is the wheels and the steering wheel. Sorry guys, the rest is gonna come out in a few patches. You bought a Tesla and all you got was the battery pack. What did I buy? You know what I mean? Oh my god.
Out on the market to create exceptions for things based on personal taste, to have all of these conversations, and of course to be very negative on a game that they believe doesn't provide them with enough for what you're asking. All video games are on an even playing field. You come out into a market and you are judged by what you present.
Exactly.
Stop trying to tell me that, guys, a game as big as Starfield, you don't get the spaghetti code behind making these games work on our engine, which is an upgraded engine of an engine that was outdated by the time it came out. Stop trying to just...
It's exactly what I was saying, bro. Why didn't you just make the decision at the development stages when you looked at engines and you looked at the capabilities of what you have in-house, and you can see clearly the rest of the engines that have gone beyond that, right? Unreal. Why not use that? Makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So you've literally chosen to limit the capabilities of your development team, of your game, when you could have just gone with a different engine from the get-go. That's simple to resolve all of these issues. And you would have given your development team more room to breathe. Things that are already in the engines that no longer need to be coded, they just work by default. You've also shrunk the development time for the game just by choosing the good engine, the right engine for your tasks. No, we're gonna develop it in-house, guys. We're gonna have more control over it. Yeah, sure. You're stupid. As I said, I'm not as soft as Mog is.
Your product being worse, because what you're telling me is please have pity for what we do and still give us your money, even though it's not as good as you want it to be.
£70,
and
$70.
that is not acceptable in this world at all.
I think this is as angry as one can get. This is not acceptable. I think that's as angry as you get. It is dog shit. You are absolutely stupid for not using the correct tools for the correct task. Okay? You want a blacksmith to make you a knife, a sword, but instead of giving him a hammer, you give him a butter knife?
I don't care that you moved as fast as you could and as safely as you could, but it's tricky.
Fast and safe? Why?
I get
Was
the
he
final
navigating
product
a
and I'm
war zone?
disappointed, and I'm gonna voice that opinion. And if you think that you should take into account the circumstances of my life when I made it, that doesn't work in any other place in the world, man. If I go to a restaurant and I order a pizza and they deliver me a piece of uncooked bread, I'm not gonna get the chef saying, sorry, I had to answer an emergency phone call. I had a
God, it's exactly as I was saying the other analogy with the car. You buy a Tesla, but all you get is the battery pack. I'm gonna send you the rest of the car in boxes, and you'll have to put it together yourself.
family emergency. Could you please have some empathy for me and also still pay me for this piece of bread that I promised was going to be a pizza, but it isn't, and also
like
leave me a good review on Yelp.
packaging.
Especially because that
Just the
analogy
packaging.
doesn't even work, because at a restaurant I'm ordering for food and I'm expecting for it to be delivered. Here
it does work, mate. It does work. It's a good enough analogy. Give yourself the credit for it. It's a good enough analogy. You know, maybe mine was a little bit better because it kind of makes a lot more sense, you know? But you're absolutely spot on.
I didn't order shit. I'm waiting for you on your timeline to do what you should to deliver me the...
This is what I was saying earlier, you know? Nobody asked you to put this title out. It wasn't the gaming community that said, hey, we need this kind of a game. You need to make it, Bethesda. Go ahead and do it now. Nobody asked you for that. You chose all of these things. You chose to have this development process. And you messed it up. And instead of apologizing and fixing it, you're disrespecting your community. You're disrespecting the buyers. It's their fault that they put their faith in you. That's absolutely true. That's where you're right. Because it will never happen again. It only takes one mistake to lose someone's trust forever. You understand? It's very hard to get it back. Very hard. That's why I think this studio is dead at this point. At least with this guy speaking, the studio is done. It's toast. It's cooked. Done.
best product, and you can't even do it with those circumstances. Stop telling me that it's so hard to make games. Stop trying to
this Emilio, whatever his name is, yeah, he's the Boris Johnson of Bethesda. It's an oven-ready deal.
manipulate me. Stop trying to gaslight me as a customer and make me feel like my criticism isn't valid. Stop trying to make me feel like the villain because I'm not. This is giving me flashbacks of the Ubisoft monetization director calling everybody criticizing Ubisoft non-decent human beings. Developers need to stop trying to manipulate their customers. How about
but
you
he's
just...
He's not a developer. That's the thing. He's not a developer. He's just a loser that got promoted to a position that he never should have touched in his entire existence. Period.
Deliver good games instead of this, man. It's so tiring. I'm being so honest that I'm tired of it, and I'm gonna keep fighting it. I'm gonna keep making videos on it.
So just seeing the visual of that is, I'm like, what the hell is that?
Just can't sit idle as these guys try and make us the villains. We just want to enjoy games. They're just trying to turn this all into a version of the world that I just cannot stand by. I don't care what the trials and tribulations of making Starfield were. I care about the thing that you sell me for money. It's that simple, my guy. But Emil finishes off by saying, to close, let me just say I love games. I love Bethesda's games. I've been playing them since the Terminator days. All I or anyone here wants to do is make those games and make them better. No ego, no arrogance, just a lot of heart.
Wasn't Terminator a total flop? He's been playing the wrong games. And he hasn't even been there for too long. Bro. It's just not. This guy should just go. Go, man. Just go.
Hard work and appreciation for our fans.
Different
And I have no
industry.
doubt that Emil loves video games. I'm sure he does. It's really hard not to love video games from my perspective because they're just awesome, man.
Yeah, but it's also
don't
very
tell
easy to be stupid at it. To be garbage at it. Both developing and playing them.
me about your hard work and about your appreciation because you're not listening and you're not improving. You're not making the
listening
best
at all, man.
games and you've made terrible decisions along the way. And that's just the way it is. So let me get everything that I have to say about Bethesda out. I'm a huge Bethesda fan. Specifically the studios. You know, Bethesda, you have to separate the publisher
Because with this
that's
dude-
got things like id, so the Doom games, and Arcane, so Dishonored, Deathloop under them, and just the studios
Yeah,
that have
the
done the
good
Bethesda Game
titles.
Studios RPGs that you probably know and love. I love them so much, and I want the best for this studio, for this type of RPG to exist. I really, really do.
Mate, I gotta disagree there with you because sometimes it's just time to hang it. You know what I mean? Just let go of it. If it's not working, let go of it. Let someone else do it. It's as I've always said. If I, for example, have a job, and at some point I realize, bro, I can't do this shit anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I'll let someone else do it, man. I'll just move on, do something else.
But I don't think that they can do it anymore. I actually went not too long after Starfield to make a video called the downfall of Bethesda or something like that, looking at the entire history of the studio to try and identify some of the core mistakes that they've made. And that video is up on the channel. I recommend it. I was sick when I made it, much like I'm coming down with a flu right now for this one, so coincidence? And in digging a lot
No
for so many
conspiracy.
interviews, for behind the scenes stuff back then,
They're out to get you, mug.
Bethesda used to want to be at the forefront of gaming. The latest tech, the latest innovations, the coolest stuff,
Yeah, what
ahead of the
happened?
curve in
What
every
happened?
possible way. And they were so ahead of the curve that when they came out with stuff like Oblivion, they were just so ahead in a lot of different ways that after that, they slowed down compared to the rest of the industry, but
Made
comparatively,
sense, though.
they
It
still
made
got
sense
away
back
with
then.
it at the time of things like Fallout 3 and Skyrim because they had invested so much into being ahead back then that they had that advantage to play with for a long while. And probably around Skyrim, that advantage
They did, but exactly as I said, something must have happened to all of those people that made all of that happen. Something has happened to those people. And I'm 100% sure we're gonna hear from some of them soon. Because after the fact, people are known to come out and talk about it. So I want to hear from those people that made Skyrim happen, Oblivion, Fallout series. I want to hear from those people which are probably not in the company anymore. Those are the people I want to hear from. And we should all hear from them. We should all listen when they start talking, because they will. Sooner or later they will. I think some of the developers have already done that. They can't talk about everything, but they can tell you why they left and why now they're working on their own projects. Because I think I've seen something from one of the developers that was working on like Skyrim and stuff, and he quit his job to go ahead and make his own game. And I think I've seen something about the game, and it looked better than all of this stuff. So what happened? Did you push all the good people out like most companies do over time? I don't know. Everything's fated to end sooner or later. It's all about how long you can stave that off. And for Bethesda, it seems like they ain't got long going. Let's keep going.
ran out. And the problem is that they didn't go back into that philosophy of we need the tools, the engine at our core. We need the philosophy with which we work on our games. We need the goal of our games to be something that was
Thank
thought
you. It's
impossible
exactly what I was saying
before,
earlier.
which is
Thank you.
how they approached something like Morrowind. They didn't reset that. They just tried to keep trucking along with the same initial monumental efforts and visionary decisions that they made all the way back for Morrowind. I made that video on toxic positivity, and I'm actually really happy in a way that I see so many people quoting that video in the comments.
From Sony with Concord to Bethesda with these titles, bro, what is happening with this stuff? Toxic positivity. It didn't even exist. This whole term didn't even exist until a couple of, I don't know, years back. How? How did it get so bad and so stupid that you can't even see from within the problems you have? How?
Comments now. I see Hubersoft, I see Bethesda everywhere, but it's become so true, and they just keep proving that hubris, that they think that what they do is so special. They find pity for themselves and how difficult it is to make these games, that they don't ask the question, why is it? What are we doing wrong? Why do we need...
Exactly. We're going back to the same thing I've said previously. They are incapable of self-reflecting. If you're not capable of self-reflecting, you cannot progress. You understand? This goes back thousands of years for the human race. We build upon what our ancestors have left for us. You understand? Why aren't you building upon that? Why aren't you self-reflecting, thinking, bro, where did I go wrong? What is the problem? And then maybe you get to the conclusion that you are the problem. As head of development, as director of whatever, you know what I mean? They can't, because they're too invested in that. They gotta keep going. They gotta keep going. They had stuff to pay, banks and shit. Fully equipped Tesla that arrived intact, not by pieces.
A Nakey Jakey video with 6 million views saying Bethesda's game design was outdated 10 years ago, and that being such a true statement, man, because they're not addressing the core issues. They're not sitting down to take a holistic look at the company and what...
It's like they started with smaller lies, and those lies kept rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling, and now they live within their own fantasy worlds and within their own lies, and they can never go back, because if they go back, they'd have to self-reflect on a decade or two of mistakes and errors. And it's really, really hard to apologize to probably all the people that they've disrespected, all the people that they've lost. So, yeah.
What they're doing and what their goals are. Instead, they're just moving forward because inertia just carries this now. It's a business. It needs to keep moving, and it feels from the side of the customer that they're just squeezing out everything that they can from this formula without innovating and without making changes that are desperately needed. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the engine. Let's talk about that interview with Bruce Nesmith, who was the lead designer on Skyrim and who was a systems designer on Starfield, because he brings up good points. It very specifically brings up the idea that the Creation Engine 2, which is still being built on the foundations of the Gamebryo engine that they built Morrowind on, is at fault for...
Oh, Morrowind. Bro, you haven't changed that. You keep trying to improve from that point on. Bro, that's just stupid. That has to be one of the dumbest decisions they've ever made. At some point, you gotta figure out that you gotta let go of that stuff. It's just not enough. You can't even compare the requirements of games from today with that one. You can't even compare it. There is no logic in doing it, first of all, in trying to compare that. And you try to build upon it and deliver games with so many requirements. That's why the UI looks like that, like garbage. It's just text. You're just seeing text and shit. Instead of, like all the new stuff that comes with engines like Unreal.
For a lot of the problems and the limitations that Bethesda finds, and Bruce says that this engine has been specifically crafted by Bethesda to complete its purpose. And this comes amidst a lot of conversations like 343 moving Halo to Unreal, Helldivers 2 devs, Arrowhead, are looking to move to Unreal, CD Projekt Red is moving away from the Red engine, surprisingly, after finally making it work with Phantom Liberty. But Nesmith brings up that there's plenty of bad games on Unreal too, that engines are just tools, and they need to be crafted in order to complete what you want, the vision you have.
But it's easier to take a new age engine and modify it to your requirements than it actually is to do like Windows did, Keep building on the same core of the same operating system until it completely collapses on your head. Because it's the same thing that Microsoft did with Windows up to a point. It just makes no sense for you to not see that. I mean, how stupid or how blind do you have to be to not see that? Are they not playing their games at all? Do they not understand? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
And that the creation engine, while it is an interesting thought to move to Unreal Engine because it would get rid of tech debt, it's an engine that was crafted specifically for this. And I've been thinking a lot about this. Now, just to clarify what tech debt is, it's this idea that this engine has been built up from Gamebryo years and years and years in the past. And a lot of the things that have been built on top of it means that there's probably code from Gamebryo still in there that can't be touched, and there's certain limitations that exist. There's things that just don't work anymore because
from the way it interfaces with other packages, from the way it translates information, from the speed that the subroutines of the engine run on, it just doesn't make any sense for you to use that. It's like trying to use Turbo Pascal to code new age games. First of all, your computer will tell you can't run this, bro. Your computer's too fast for it. You cannot run this. Again, incapable of self-reflection only shows one thing: how narcissistic and stupid they are.
Over time, as you keep modifying the engine and lead up to the Creation Engine 2, some things were never future-proofed. So you're just building on top of it, and you can't really go back that deep in to touch things without breaking everything again. And that can cause very big unexpected problems down the line, and moving to Unreal Engine would solve that. But it would also mean retraining everybody to work in Unreal Engine. It would mean starting fresh, which is what I've been saying Bethesda needs to do. But let's ignore this for a moment. So instead of doing the thing that I think a lot of people who focus a lot on Bethesda, who cover a lot of Bethesda's games do, which is Creation Engine bad, please fix engine. Let's talk about why. Every Bethesda game...
Don't fix nothing. You're past the point where you can fix things. You've been trying for a very long time. Just drop it all together. Go into a new engine. Get a new engine. Go with Unreal. It's the latest and greatest. Go with the latest and greatest. Okay? It's the only direction of movement you should ever have.
Since Morrowind has in its DNA a certain formula and a certain feel that has not changed and has grown stagnant. Every time a small feature is added into a Bethesda game, because it's a Bethesda game, it feels like a giant change. And that's one of the reasons that they're so popular to mod as well, right? Because that feeling of, oh wow, this is such a transformative change, is there in mods as well. But when you jump from game to game, every little addition, be that sprint or iron sights or the guns behaving like guns instead of being RNG like they were in Fallout 3 on if the bullet would hit or not, each of these things feels like, oh wow, they have improved this so much that now this is possible, even though they are just mediocre at what they are. When you consider it like shooting, it's not great shooting in these games. Starfield is better than Fallout 4, but Starfield still feels pretty meh. But it's just the overall sensation of it. The way you walk, the way the camera bobs when you jump, the way that you interact with objects and terrain.
It makes you stop playing and thinking, what did just happen? And I played a little bit of Starfield, and at some point I was in like a firefight. I was shooting at stuff, and at some point I couldn't tell the enemies from the friendly, so I just shot everybody. You know what I mean? It just made no sense. And the gunplay was so bad. It felt so weird, so unrealistic that it literally cuts your immersion. You're no longer immersed into the story, into the gameplay. You're no longer there. You only see the faults. When that happens and your immersion is broken, you only see the faults. It's like all of a sudden you know you're in the forest.
The way that you talk to NPCs and the camera zooms in on their face, the menus, the loading times, everything about these games feels so familiar, including, you know, their bugs and a lot of their core systems. So let me rephrase that idea that Bethesda needs a new engine. Bethesda needs to break away from their formula in a more meaningful way. At this point in time, I am excited for Avowed because it looks like Obsidian is trying to make a Bethesda-style RPG. I know plenty of people tell me, why do you people love Obsidian so much? I love Obsidian because I really
because they're good, they've made good games.
like their games. It's not just Fallout New Vegas. I liked Tyranny. I liked Pillars of Eternity. I loved Pentiment. I thought Pentiment was awesome. I like their writing. I like the style of RPG that they make, be that the more traditional CRPG
Going back to story and good gameplay.
or the more experimental stuff. And Avowed being them doing a Bethesda game studio style RPG is exciting because even if they fail, from the pre-release footage, from the interviews we've seen, they're placing a lot of emphasis on combat feeling good. That's wild. Imagine a Bethesda Game Studios RPG where the combat had more depth to it. Which I'm not saying that there's not a lot of options for combat in Starfield or in Skyrim when you factor in the powers and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to you can shoot and spam heal and the combat is over. Sure, you could do other things, but doing those other
It's pretty repetitive. Doing those other things means you go outside of the box and you create some taxating stuff on yourself when you could just rinse and repeat.
things is for fun. That's a very different thing than in Cyberpunk when you have to commit to your build and really use what you have committed to in order to get through something. In Cyberpunk, if you don't build to stand in front of people and shoot them, and then you try and do that, you just lose. So the game, at least on normal difficulties, right, is forcing you to choose a build and to play as it. And if Avowed has me exploiting the advantages of different weapons against different enemies, or forcing me to engage in different combat mechanics that are interesting or creative and actually fulfilling to use, and then everything else about it is garbage, I would still consider it a huge success because it's moving the Bethesda Game Studios style RPG forward in at least one direction. And once again,
it's not a great success, it's somewhat of a success, right? It means you're on the right track moving towards success, but you're not there yet.
It's not made by Bethesda. That is the type of change I am talking about. So it comes down to this. They need to do something bigger with the formula. They need something more transformative that actually feels like a generational jump, like something new. Because their worlds and the crafting of those worlds and their quest design and their stories, their writing seems to be going slightly downhill depending on who you ask.
Either felt very weird. I couldn't understand why the robot was doing what it was doing. It made no sense.
Little bit downhill or very majorly downhill. And because the rest of the world keeps advancing, it just feels more and more outdated on top of that.
Yeah,
it's both things at once.
Nokia style, bro.
So we need better stealth systems. We need better climbing systems for things.
And I keep going back to the Nokia errors and mistakes that ruined that company because I was a big Nokia fan. I mean, 70% of my phones were Nokia up to that point and even after for a period. But then again, you gotta move on. You know, we expected more and it never happened.
It's like agility. We need more interesting combat systems that feel better, that are weighty and have more depth to them so that engaging in combat
that feel like you had a say in the combat. Like you chose that, like it made sense to you and now you're playing the way that you wanted to play it. That's what it is. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Okay, so let's keep going.
Is fun over the course of 120 hours instead of either an exploit or just clicking and healing. We need better level and world design, which sometimes Starfield hints at, of that more immersive sim style quest structure. We also need them to focus on not dumbing them down. If they want to make their games as approachable as possible, put in accessibility options. Just have a toggle when you start the game for like, do you want this to be simplified or do you want to have more control and use more complex systems for RPGs? Elder Scrolls 6 should not feel like Starfield, but with a fantasy skin on top of it. It shouldn't. There's things that need to be updated here.
There are serious doubts now that the game will even come out. So they have like, give me 1 second. Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 5, Wolfenstein 3, and Marvel's Blade, which are to be announced for Bethesda. I really doubt these titles are gonna come out. At this point, I have serious doubts. And even if they do come out, if they come out in the state that these previous games like Starfield have been in, I think they're just gonna be more nails in the coffin of this company. Let's see.
Can't have loading screens for every single section, especially in a game where
True.
you are constantly changing sections.
Yeah, man, but if they're doing it on the old engines and they're not updating, that's what we're gonna get. It's not gonna change for the better. It's just not. It's not.
Of the world, right? You need a better camera system for your dialogue and cinematics. You need better things at this point. And if the reason that that's not implemented is the creation engine, which I'm not saying it is, I'm saying if it is, it needs to go. Either that needs to be reworked in such a way that those optimizations, that those changes, that those improvements can be made to modernize the game and hopefully from there focus on the quality of everything else, or it just needs to go. But really, it's the unwillingness and the hubris that I see from Bethesda that makes me believe that they just can't move forward. Because even now, Emil addressing the backlash is still telling us that people like it, and it's not everybody's cup of tea fundamentally, that you guys don't understand how difficult it is to make games. I get it, man. You're saying that you're not patting yourself on the back while still saying, but we did pretty well considering how difficult it is to make games, something that you people wouldn't know. It's exhausting. Bethesda desperately needs to evolve. They need to change.
Not in my opinion.
And if they're not willing to do that, and instead they just want to hear that some people love the game and they want to bury their heads in how difficult their jobs are, to me, they're dead. And to me, if it wasn't clear the last 2 times we've talked about them, it should be clear right now that Elder Scrolls 6 is not something that you should pay attention to. Even if it does come out and there's a ton of trailers and hype, you should probably wait 3 years for the enhanced edition. Fallout 5, which would normally be my most anticipated game, I don't care anymore. I'll believe it when I see it. When I hear 50 million people tell me it's great, then I'll care. Bethesda's just not willing to move from their formula, but they're also not willing.
It's a wait game until the company collapses now. And that's exactly what he's saying. It's a wait game. Even if these titles that I've told you about will come out, like Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 5, Wolfenstein 3, Marvel's Blade, which are the games that they have listed as to be announced, even if they do come out, people are going to be extremely skeptical either way. First of all, because of all the failures from before, and second of all, because the people that shouldn't be talking from the company are still talking and they're disrespecting the community. People are just gonna wait it out, and it's probably gonna be another disaster and the final nail in the coffin. It's gonna kill the company completely. So I think our friend here, Emil, should really go do something else with his life. A different industry, different sector, different altogether role, and let someone else more capable take over and solve this problem. Or otherwise this company is done. Toast.
Evolve it and advance it. And all the meanwhile, they're treating customers worse and worse. They still do all of the horrible practices that they have, from things like paid mods, which I'll never get over. It's a shit show. It's profoundly disappointing. And I don't know why they do it. I think everybody that is a Bethesda fan, which is a lot of people, would buy a smaller, maybe 20-hour game where they're testing out their engine for a new combat system, or where they're testing it out for different stuff that they could implement, and they're just experimenting with it, and they want to justify those big changes with the game. Tons of studios have done that, tested new things out with a smaller project, but they refuse. They either put out gigantic, massive RPGs that feel increasingly bloated and stale and outdated, or
bloated with the wrong things and empty in the things where they should have invested more time. That's the problem. It just, at some point you stop playing and you're asking yourself, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I playing this? When there are so many other titles out there that feel way better. The combat is better. The engine's better. You don't have a loading screen every 5 minutes.
Or Fallout Shelter to try and capitalize on their IP, I guess. But they can't actually try something new. They keep saying that Starfield was so ambitious for them because of going to outer space. And I have never felt more deceived because Starfield doesn't feel...
Just gotta pause for a second. That NPC right there in that combat scene was expecting the enemy to come through the wall. It was literally in one corner. There's nothing in that direction. It was looking in that direction. What's going on with that AI, bro? Who coded that? Didn't they realize in testing how dog shit it is? I mean, come on. It's plain for everybody to see that it's absolute garbage. And you, as a developer and tester, do not see that? I mean, it's in your fucking eyes every single day while you're working on that project and you don't see it. Or maybe something else is happening in that company.
Like outer space at all. To me, I know there's going to be people in the comments, there always is. Starfield is great, you're just haters. Starfield feels like fast travel menus. Starfield feels like any other Bethesda RPG before it, except that you can teleport into different areas that are procedurally generated with a number of different biomes. It's the same thing. It feels like the same thing because none of the things that would have mattered to make it feel like a space RPG are there beyond it is set in space.
Look at that.
But that's not good enough.
Exactly what I was saying. The AI doesn't even know where it's supposed to be going. It doesn't even understand the environment around it. I get it that some things are procedurally generated, but your NPCs don't know what is happening. It's like you've taken their models out of something else, dumped them in there, reskinned them, and that's it. Problem solved.
Overall, at the moment, is just not good enough, I think. I don't like these behaviors. I don't like being told I'm to blame, my expectations are to blame, or that other people like this game. It's just that I have a weird opinion. I don't appreciate being treated like this, and I don't like that these people control some of my favorite IPs of all time. I always approach these things with the best at heart. I want them to improve,
that's 'cause you're a
and
good
this is
guy,
why I say these things. I don't say them because
exactly what
I like hating on them or like I want to get on a hate train.
No. They deserve the hate. It's not about getting on the hate train. They deserve it. It's long overdue. People have taken enough from these guys. Something needs to change before there is no more room to change. Okay? Someone needs to step in and others need to step down. That's it. It's the only option left at this point. It's the only option left.
Hopefully this is the last time that I have to talk about this for a while. Because I have other cooler things to talk about. There's other better stuff out there.
Yes,
but
mate,
thank
that's
you
true.
so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. We've reached 50,000 subscribers. I suppose the next goal would be 75k. Leave your suggestions for what crazy thing I should do at 75k. 50k was cutting my hair. Now what? Let's have some fun with it. Thank you so much for watching.
I'm gonna shave
a very special thanks to the patrons up on the $1 patron wall. It's called that way because there's only one tier, $1. And if you want to support what I do, there's a link down in the description below.
Go hit that
Since
up.
this video has already gone on for...
He deserves it. We're just gonna leave it there. I think his opinions were on point. Not all of them. I don't agree with all the perspectives, but that's probably because I'm a bit more aggressive than he is when it comes to this. And I just don't take it forever like he does and most of the Bethesda fans do. For me, there's a limit. You deliver a bad product and you keep delivering a bad product, but you're expecting forgiveness and money for it. I mean, straight off, you're off the beaten path. You're just delusional at that point. So, yeah.
Way longer than my normal videos do. If you're here at the end, I assume that you care a lot and you're a fan of the channel. I just want to say I'm really, really grateful. I've been struggling a lot with keeping up quality output on the channel while having a 9 to 5, which I don't know if people are aware of that.
That's true. I was in this situation plus with kids and trying to run a side business and all of that stuff. It just is too much. That's why I'm here doing reacts instead of making this kind of videos. So I do appreciate Makti for doing this and doing a brilliant job as much as he can. So yeah, as I've said previously, go subscribe, hit that notification bell, do the same for my channel if you're interested in more of these conversations and a little bit more aggressiveness that these people I'm talking about the developers and the leaders of these companies deserve. So if you want to see more of that, you know what you need to do. So I'm just not gonna go on forever. So thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna be doing more of these video reacts with all the time that I have. I'll be investing it in this and gaming, as well as maybe some art. I have been working on something. Give you 1 second. I took 2 days off because it is the month of Halloween. I've made a tiny monster, and it took about 2 days to sculpt it and glue all of the fur and all of that good stuff. The eyes are glass, handmade, hand painted. Everything about this little guy, and the fur is fake, right? So it's synthetic stuff. I wouldn't hurt animals to make art. That's not appropriate. And yeah, there's gonna be a video on the channel. Gonna be a video about it as soon as I can finish editing it and uploading it. So yeah, stay tuned for that as well. We're gonna be doing some art. We're gonna be doing some sculpting as well, alongside everything else, gaming, video reacts, and so on. And we're gonna be doing video reacts in more than just gaming sector, because I believe the whole world's gonna bit off the beaten track, and maybe discussing it is part of the solution.
I have a job every day that takes up a lot of time,
Bro,
and it's been really hard
jobs right now. It's quite difficult in the UK job environment right now, especially if you're not in one of the big cities, like I'm not. It's quite difficult to get a stable job. Yeah, and the situation right now is a bit grim and dark here, but we'll see. We'll get through it. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Magfi for the wonderful video. And 2 more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.